Hi everyone. So today we're going to work on what are called equations in quadratic form. So basically we're going to work on using the solving of quadratics with equations that look really a lot harder, but if you simplify the process, simplify the problem to a quadratic, it becomes really easy. Okay, so when we do equations in quadratic form, basically we are going to do what I call a let u. So we're going to let u, the letter, replace the complicated part of the variable. I want to say the variable in the problem. In the problem. Okay, now that doesn't make any sense, but basically what happens is you're going to replace the complicated stuff with u, and you're going to solve that, and it's going to make life so much easier. And it's so much easier if I just, let's do a problem. All right, so here we have x to the fourth minus x squared plus 8. Now that looks really hard. Like, how are we going to factor in x to the fourth? What are we going to do? Well, let's make it a simpler problem. So what we're going to do is we're going to let u represent always the middle guy. It's just going to be easier if you remember that. So we're going to make a let statement. So let u equals x squared. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take this u, let me change color here, this u, and replace it with the x squared and here. Now, what do you mean by x to the fourth? Well, u squared would be x squared squared, or x to the fourth. Okay, so let's rewrite this problem now as u squared minus 9u plus 8 equals 0. Well, now it's a quadratic, and we know how to factor a quadratic. Multiply first and last, find me factors of 8 to add up to negative 9. Okay, so use your factoring techniques. Box, split, distribute, and I think, and solve. Okay, so I'm going to just do, okay, so I'm going to factor this. So 8u squared, and that's going to be negative 8u and negative 1u. Okay, I know a lot of us do box, so I'm going to do box here. It's going to be a really tiny box. Didn't leave myself enough room here. Okay, so GCF up is u minus 1, u minus 8. So u minus 1 equals, u minus 1 times u minus 8 is equal to 0. Set each equal to 0. So that should not be a major event. Okay, so you're basically basing your let statement on the middle term. Okay, so whatever the variable is in the middle term, that's what you're going to let u equal. That's the easiest way I can tell you to do it. It's hard to figure that out, but once you put it equal to the middle term, it's going to make more sense. Now, we're not done. Just because we know u is 1 and u is 8, sorry, that's a little loud. Okay? What you're going to do now is replace the u with what it was equal to. So now we're going to go back and replace. So I'm going to replace u with x squared. So we get x squared equals 1, x squared equals 8. Now solve for x. Okay, x because it's the variable. All right, so x squared equals 1. We're going to square root both sides. Okay, so x equals, and the square root of 1 is 1 plus or minus 1. Okay, all right, so now we get x squared equals 8 square root. Okay, so x equals plus or minus the square root of 8. We know how to simplify that. So 8 is 4 and 2. So square root of 4, square root of 2, 2 square roots of 2. So x equals plus or minus 2 square roots of 2. Okay, all right. You can tell you're doing higher level math when problem takes a lot of space. All right, so why don't you try this process with the next problem? All right, let's see how you did. Okay, so I let u be x squared. Again, this is going to be your u. Okay, it's always the middle one. It just works out. Make sure your thing is in order, but it's always the middle one. Okay, factor, solve, replace, solve. And you're going to get your solutions. So notice there's 1, 2 for 3 and 1, 2 for I, so there's 4 solutions. Okay, all right. So let's try some variations of this. We want to find the x-intercepts. Again, x-intercepts is the same as solve. Where does the graph cross the x-axis? We haven't graphed yet. That's tomorrow's adventure. Okay, or Wednesday's adventure, tomorrow night. Okay, so let's find these x-intercepts. So basically set it equal to 0 and solve. So here is your middle term. Yes, it's going to be an expression, and that's okay. So my let statement is going to be let u equal x squared minus 1. So u squared would be x squared minus 1 quantity squared, which is this guy right here. So that's what we're putting in. We're going to go put in u squared. Okay, so let's make this a simpler problem. U squared minus u minus 2 is equal to 0. Well, factors of negative 2 to add up to negative 1, or negative 2 and 1. Set both equal to 0. Okay, so now that I've solved the simpler problem, we're going to come back up. Okay, you're going to replace. Okay, so replace your u with what it was equal to, which is x squared minus 1 equals 2, and x squared minus 1 is equal to negative 1. Okay, solve for x squared. So that means I got to add the 1 equals 3, square root both sides. Boom, boom. We get x is equal to plus or minus the square root of 3. Okay, over here we're going to add the 1, so we get x squared is equal to 0. Square root both sides. So x is equal to 0. And there's your solutions. Okay? All right, we should check it out. Both work, so we're good to go. Okay? Yes, okay. I'm just double checking. All right, so pause the video and try the next one on your own. Okay, so I got plus or minus the square root of 6 and plus or minus 1. Just double checking to make sure. Yep, okay. All right, so here's some of our helpful hints. Look to two variable expressions in the equation. One variable should be the square of the other. That's why we're going to use the middle, and then the other one's the square. Write down any substitutions you're making. Remember to solve for the variable using the original equation, and check your possible answers in the original equation. So we're going with everything works. Okay, so now that we've kind of got this let you thing happening, okay, it can be used for any number of problems. So let's try some rational equations and radical and rationals. Okay? All right, so what we're going to do is, again, we're going to do the let you thing. Okay? But now we're going to be involving square roots and fractions. I'm just going to put like something along that lines. All right? So our let yous now are going to be more than just maybe an expression or a variable. It's going to be involving some things that are a little bit more complicated. But again, always look to the middle term to figure out what your let you is going to equal. All right, so let's try this one. All right, that looks really, really hard. Like, how in the world are we going to solve this? Let's start with our let you being this middle term. Okay, so let u equals the square root of x. So that means u squared is the square root of x squared, which is just x. Well, that makes sense. All right, so u squared minus 3u minus 4 is equal to 0. Okay, so we're going to factor. Again, use your factoring techniques, but at this point, factors of -4 to add up to -1, or -4 and +1. So u minus 4, u plus 1 is equal to 0. Set both equal to 0. Okay, we're going to solve. Okay, all right, so now, again, we're going to come back up. We're going to do our substituting, or replace. So now this, let's see if I can get a different color. I'll use this one. All right, so now we're going to take the square root of x, and we're going to put it here for u, and we're going to put it here for u. All right, so the square root of x is equal to 4. Square root of x is equal to -1. All right, and then we're going to square both sides to solve. A lot happening in this problem. So x is equal to 16. Now, when we square both sides here, okay, we're going to get x is equal to 1. Now, we should check this out. So 16 minus 3 times 4. So 16 minus 12 is 4. Minus 4 is 0. 1 minus 3 times 1 is negative. 1 minus 3 is -2. -2 minus 4 is -6. Nope, that doesn't work. And the reason why I kind of knew right here is because the square root of x is not going to equal -1. It's not going to equal a negative number. Okay, that's why I kind of knew. All right, let's try this one. Again, they start looking more and more complicated, but again, if you keep in mind that the middle term is always going to be your let u part, it's going to become a lot easier. So if we do our let u is equal to m to the -1, and don't worry about the 1 over or anything else yet, then u squared is m to the -2. Okay, so let's replace. Let's put those in. 2u squared plus u minus 15 is equal to 0. All right, so here I'm definitely going to have to. All right, so that's -30 u squared. So I'm going to go +6 and -5. I think that'll work. All right, so let me draw my box. Getting better at these boxes. There are some times where my box is so bad it doesn't go to a box. Okay, so 2u squared, 6u minus 5u minus 15. Okay, up I get u plus 3, 2u minus 5. Okay, so u plus 3, 2u minus 5. Okay, so set them equal to 0. Okay. All right, so no big deal there. But now I got to come back up and do my replace. And I definitely did not leave myself enough room. So let's do this. Whoops. There we go. Okay, so we're going to go m to the -1 equals -3. M to the -1 equals 5 over 2. All right, so how are we going to do this? Well, let's see. M to the -1 is 1 over m. Okay, and that's equal to -3. All right, let's solve for m. So that's 1 equals -3m, or 1/3. -1/3 is m. Okay, let's try the same thing over here. Again, I never leave myself enough room. Okay, so we're going to go 1 over m is equal to 5 over 2. Do cross product. There we go. All right, so again, it looked really a lot harder than it actually was, but there's a lot of steps involved here, so try not to get lost. All right, let's try another one. Yeah, I think we can do both of these. All right, so here, again, here's my middle. All right, so there's my let u, t to the 1/5. So u squared would be t to the 2/5, right? Because we're squaring it and multiplying 2 times 1/5 is 2/5. All right, so u squared minus u minus 2 is equal to 0. Easy to factor. Minus 2 plus 1. Okay, set them equal to 0. Okay, so u is 2. U is negative 1. Okay. All right. So now, again, we're going to go back and go, all right, let's put this in. So t to the 1/5 is equal to 2. And t to the 1/5 is equal to negative 1. Okay, so these are rational exponents, which means that we're going to want to take it to the appropriate power, which means we're going to take it to the 5th power. So everybody's going to get to the 5th. Okay, so we're going to get t equals 2 to the 5th is 32. And then t equals negative 1 to the 5th is just negative 1. So that one wasn't too bad. It looked a lot worse than it actually was. Well, that's certainly not. Okay. All right, so we're going to try this one. So we're going to let u equals 5 plus the square root of r. And then u squared is equal to 5 plus the square root of r squared. Okay, so we're going to solve this for, we're going to try and solve this. Okay? All right, so we're going to get u squared plus 6u. Oh, gosh. That doesn't work. Ugh, quadratic formula. All right. I'm going to give it a shot. All right, let's give it a shot. Okay, so u equals, this is a hardcore problem here, guys. It's your challenge question. All right, so negative 6 plus or minus 28 would be 2 square roots of 7 all over 2. Again, I'm 28. Break it down. 4 and 7. Square root of 4, square root of 7, 2 square roots of 7. Okay, we can make this negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 7. It's going to make our lives easier. All right, so we're going to get 5 plus the square root of r equals negative 3 plus the square root of 7, and 5 plus the square root of r equals negative 3 minus the square root of 7. Well, let's just subtract the 5. The square root of r is equal to negative 8 plus the square root of 7. Same thing here, square root of r is equal to negative 8 minus the square root of 7. Okay. Now, I'm not going to be going squaring anything because it really isn't going to help me because I'm talking about square roots. Keep in mind, the square root is never going to equal a negative number. when there's no negative in front of it. So negative 8 is going to be a lot bigger than the square root of 7. So this is going to be a negative number, okay, which we can't have for a square root, so that's no solution. And the same here. This is also going to be a negative number. So both of these give you a negative number, which means this entire problem has no solution. There we go. All that work, no solution. All right, guys, let me know if you have any questions. I apologize for the lateness, and I will talk to you again real soon.